Swordsman on Suho stands in front of his teammates, poisoned, acting tough while having a broken sword in his hand. His teammate, warrior Alex Morgan, who is also among the 4 people who put our boy in this state, does not like his stubbornness, telling our boy that it would have been better if, instead of causing a ruckus, he had joined them in their cause from the beginning. The mage Suzuki Endo, who hates the guys in suits, holds the same opinion as Alex, mentioning how despite being called a sword god, his innate talent does not match the rest of his teammates. On Suho, on the other hand, Suho reminisces about the good days he spent with his teammates and how they overcame obstacles with everyone's help in their journey and how they worked together to defeat creatures like dragons. Suho asks his teammates the reason they are doing this to him even though they have been fighting together all this time, to which the healer Isabella responds that they did not have any other choice, for Suho is the only one opposing this operation. On Suho does not want to leave the disaster gates, the sole major source of the monsters, alone, telling his former teammates that they should be ashamed of this operation. Our boy mentions that they have already conquered 1 out of the 5 disaster gates, and if they conquer the remaining 4 disaster gates in the same manner, they would be able to save all of humanity. Suho believes that there is no difference between them and the monsters who put humanity in danger, to which the archer Hex Hood responds that they, at the very least, telling our boy that the hunters, who were once revered as heroes, would lose their place in an instant if all the gates were gone and people would only consider them as some thugs, which is something even Suho would not like, as he also does not want to become a target of fear. Hex Hood offers to let Suho live if he changes his mind and decides to join them in their propaganda. However, our boy finds it hilarious that Hex Hood is able to say something like that after stabbing him in the back. Our boy realizes that nothing can save him at this point because his whole body is poisoned by Suzuki's lethal venom and he is full of wounds that cannot be healed, which means our boy has 0 chance of surviving this situation. However, our boy thinks he should at least bring one of his former teammates along with him for the sake of the remaining humanity, as that would be the last duty he has to perform as a hero of humanity. Suho grabs his broken sword tightly and starts gathering his energy, which is more than enough to shock his former teammates. However, Suzuki tells them to not get scared as it is but a mere bluff, since there is no way Suho would be able to pull off something dangerous with his broken sword. Hex Hood, on the other hand, senses that something is different about Suho this time, and while he is thinking, Suho dashes through Alex and Suzuki while hurting them as much as he could to attack Isabella, who was standing beside Hex Hood, but because Hex Hood was able to sense it beforehand, he moves out of Suho's attack range, along with Isabella. Isabella is shocked to see Suzuki and Alex get hurt and starts healing Alex, only to realize she is not able to heal his wounds. Hex Hood, on the other hand, is glad that he was able to react to Suho's attack quickly, for if Hex Hood had been a bit late, both he and Isabella would have gotten hit. Hex Hood wonders how Suho was able to pass through Alex and Suzuki while hurting them with his broken sword, because at his current state, it would be difficult for Suho to breathe with the poison spreading throughout his body. Seeing Alex's current state and the way our boy attacked, Isabella concludes that Suho might have unlocked the intangible sword, which is something that Isabella has heard about from other hunters. Our boy, however, does not seem very happy even after unlocking the intangible sword, because at that very moment, our boy loses his consciousness and falls off the cliff. As Suho is falling, he receives various system messages congratulating Suho on reaching the realm of the divine sword unity and awakening the ultimate swordsmanship. Our boy is also able to master the formless sword, acquiring his first SS rank skill, and because our boy was the first person to ever reach the realm of the transcendent, the system grants him the opportunity to become even stronger and reboots the system of player on Suho. The scene then shifts to our boy who opens his eyes while lying down on a road, when suddenly a firefighter carries him up to take him to a safe place, making sure Suho is feeling bad since he is injured. The firefighter informs Suho that a precursory gate has appeared, which is why he is being taken to the safe zone. Our boy finds it strange that he is being carried by a firefighter, even though he was certain he died a moment ago. So he observes his surroundings, only to realize that he is in Syndrome Station, which got contaminated due to the gate outbreak as goblins took control over it. As he is wondering, an arrow comes straight towards Suho's way and hits the firefighter, which causes both of them to fall down. A bunch of goblins approach the injured Suho and the firefighter. The firefighter begs Suho to flee quickly, but Suho, despite being warned of the dangers of confronting the monsters, grabs the firefighter's axe and throws it at one of the goblins, which ends up eliminating one of them. As our boy is trying to figure out the situation, he receives the system messages, congratulating him on fulfilling the awakening conditions, which has allowed him to be awakened as a player. The system tells our boy to select the power he wishes to pursue, leading our boy to conclude that the scenario he is experiencing is exactly the same as when he was awakened as a player. The system, just like before, gives our boy the choice of having one power out of 4, which are Warrior, Mage, Archer, and Healer. Suho is about to choose a warrior instinctively but gets stopped and tells the system to delay the selection, as Suho has to deal with the goblins in front of him. The firefighter shouts at Suho to make a run, but our boy assures the firefighter that he is able to handle these monsters alone, as they are just some goblins. The goblins recognize Suho as a threat after they see Suho kill one of them and charge towards him, but Suho manages to move past all of them to grab the axe he had thrown to defeat the goblin. Suho grabs the sword and quickly eliminates one of the goblins, thanks to which Suho is able to secure his sword. Suho is not afraid of the goblins, for they are only a threat to beginner players, and takes stance to deal with all of them. Suho believed that goblins were no match for his sheer strength and skill, and he was able to defeat all of them in an instant. However, despite eliminating all of the goblins, Suho realizes that his anger is not subsiding and believes he became a little excited after seeing some goblins. Our boy very well knows he should not act in anger, and at times like these, he should be cool-headed. Suho believes he must have returned to the past for some reason, and thinks that it is a clear opportunity to start over from scratch. As he is wondering about it, Suho notices that the system is congratulating him on mastering the basic swordsmanship skills, which Suho has not seen for quite a while. The firefighter, who got injured while saving Suho, asks our boy if he is a player, to which our boy nods and tells the system that he has decided to become the healer. For choosing the path of the healer, the system grants Suho 5 bonus stats and gives him Healing Light, which is an F-rank skill. Suho asks the firefighter to show his wounds so that Suho can heal him and uses his Healing Light to heal the wounded firefighter, which not only takes the arrow out of his back, but also heals it completely. Because Suho used his first healing skill, the system decides to give our boy a small gift and asks him to select a weapon from the system's arsenal, on which our boy summons the beginner's sword. Suho then decides to conquer the gate, but the firefighter warns him of the dangers of going alone, to which Suho responds that he has something to gain from this. The reason Suho chose healer is because he realized that the skills acquired based on talent can be used freely regardless of the class, which explains why Suho was able to gain his swordsmanship skills before choosing his class. Moreover, the skills of the chosen class automatically upgrade as the player's level increases. Our boy remembers that Isabella's Holy Spirit Light also began as the Healing Light, and believes that things would have been different if he had been able to heal his wounds using that skill back when he was cornered by his former teammates. To prevent the same thing from happening again, our boy decides to become proficient in swordsmanship and healing. Additionally, Suho must level up quickly to acquire skills faster, because that is the only way he can become stronger faster than his former teammates. Our boy remembers that Syndrome Station Gate is an unpredictable premonition gate, which almost sent our boy to death's door in his past life. However, despite having a low skill level, Suho believes that things are different now, because the swordsmanship that was engraved in his mind remains the same, which makes it easy for Suho to start things over again. Suho touches the gate, which allows him to enter a place known as Green-Red, which has unknown maximum entry capacity. Our boy walks through the Green-Red and realizes that all the goblins that were rampaging outside the gate as if it were their world are all dead inside the gate, which makes it seem that they escaped through the gate, running away from something. But it did not take long for Suho to meet the reason that made the goblins run out to the world, for he sees 2 hobgoblins of level 10 and level 12 standing right in front of him. One of the hobgoblin throws the goblin he hunted on the ground and points his weapon towards Suho, as if it wants to make Suho his prey instead of the goblins. Hobgoblins have red skin unlike the regular goblins, and they also possess a larger body with stronger muscles. However, none of that matters. Hobgoblin charges at our boy, targeting his neck, but our boy manages to dodge it by falling back a little, thinking that at his current level, he won't be able to go through Hobgoblin's skin. So he decides to find its weakness and exploit it. Suho dashes forward and targets the hobgoblin's eye. This would have been impossible if there was a huge difference in level or if the characteristics of the monster were significantly superior, but doing that to a mere goblin would be easy. Suho utilizes this opportunity to eliminate the hobgoblin, which he regrets doing, but Suho could not stop because of his habit, so he decided to be more careful with the next hobgoblin, for our boy needs to make use of it until he finds another one. The other hobgoblin is infuriated after seeing Suho eliminate his brethren, so it charges at Suho and continues to attack him without taking a breather. However, Suho, instead of counterattacking or blocking the hobgoblin's continuous attacks, decides to dodge them, for one can acquire a skill related to an action if they repeat a certain action several times, which means that if our boy keeps avoiding the hobgoblin's attack, he would be able to acquire the skill dodge. Suho was right, for after dodging enough hobgoblin attacks, Suho was able to acquire the skill dodge, which is a B rank skill, and now that he has acquired dodge, Suho decides to go after the skill parry. Parrying has a deep history, with dedicated weapons for it, and it is an essential skill that serves as the foundation for other important skills. Our boy, one after another, continues to parry hobgoblin's attacks, and after parrying enough times, he acquires mastery over the skill parry, which is another B-rank skill. Our boy is relieved that he was able to parry the hobgoblin before it ran out of energy, and now that the hobgoblin serves no other purpose, our boy finishes him off in one move with his sword, allowing him to go find the other hobgoblins, as it is almost time for our boy to start earning some experience points. The scene then shifts to outside the gate, where some people are angry over Suho entering the gate without permission, curious as to which faction he belongs to. One of them decides to punish Suho for entering on his own, while the other believes it would be funny if he ends up dying there. They ask the firefighter, who last saw our boy, about Suho's identity, asking if he was a beginner player, to which the firefighter responds that his way of speaking seemed like that of a new player, further telling the players that Suho dealt with a group of goblins and entered the gate after healing his wounds. The firefighter also mentions that Suho wanted to gain something from this gate. The rest of the players find it ridiculous that a new player was able to deal with a group of goblins, while also healing the firefighter's wounds with his abilities. One of the players, who is wearing a suit, concludes that the gate they were about to raid does not seem difficult, for all the monsters that came out of it were goblins, but despite that, it is still too much for a mere healer to conquer a gate all by himself. The more surprising thing is the fact that he was able to take out a bunch of goblins without getting a scratch, which makes the player wonder if Suho has any objective, but later concludes that since he was a beginner, he must have gone in without thinking, as there is no way a healer would be crazy enough to enter a gate alone. However, the player believes it would be shocking if Suho really manages to clear the gate on his own. The player instructs his assistant to send a report as soon as there is a change in a gate or if anyone exits the gate, thinking that if Suho clears the gate on his own, they will have to convince him to join their team. The scene then shifts to Suho, who is earning lots of experience points by eliminating one hobgoblin after another. However, after defeating a bunch of them, our boy deliberately lets go of one of the hobgoblins, who is scared for his life after losing his weapon, so that he can bring its friends back to our boy. The hobgoblin lets out a loud scream and flees from Suho as far as it can, while Suho wishes the hobgoblin would bring back many of its friends. After scaring the hobgoblin, our boy decides to manage his stats while he waits for another group of hobgoblins to come. Our boy believes that it is better to raise all stats evenly rather than just focusing on one, and because he received quite a few bonus stats after catching and defeating a lot of monsters, Suho was able to level up easily. After acquiring most of the basic skills, Suho starts looking for a magic stone, which he fortunately finds quickly, even though he was not expecting. Although Suho got his hands on a small magic stone from one of the hobgoblins, it can still be sold for 50,000 won, as it is a D-grade magic stone. In the past, Suho would not have bothered to collect something so small, as he does not like the idea of indulging in luxury, but Suho is quite low on money, so he decides to search for more magic stones. Our boy manages to gather 20 magic stones, which Suho believes would fetch him a nice profit if he sells each and every one of them. As Suho is wondering about how to sell magic stones, he hears a loud noise, which makes him realize that another horde of hobgoblins is here, and if Suho manages to take them down, their boss will eventually appear. In a few moments, about 30 hobgoblins appear in front of our boy, which is a good thing, as it will allow Suho to make some good experience points before facing the boss. Suho praises the hobgoblin whom he let go to gathering a lot of hobgoblins and jumps high in the air to start his hunt. Our boy starts eliminating hobgoblins one after another, making sure he finishes all 30 of them quickly. However, as he is dealing with them, Suho notices that a very strong attack is coming towards him, which our boy manages to block with his sword, only to find out that the attack was from the level 20 chief of the hobgoblins. The hobgoblin chief attacks our boy with his long axe, but our boy manages to dodge it by falling back. However, as he is falling back, our boy is attacked by one of the regular hobgoblins. Suho manages to block this surprise attack and decides to deal with these insignificant creatures before going after their chief. Suho eliminates most of the regular hobgoblins, but as Suho is finishing them, the chief of hobgoblins uses his skill Fear, which puts our boy in a state of fear and makes his muscles stiff. The skill Fear, as it is in the name, induces fear upon its opponents, and its effects increase the higher the level and stats of the user. Suho was not expecting to encounter someone using fear in such a low-level gate. The chief of hobgoblins takes his stance with his long axe, while Suho, on the other hand, realizes that without any skills or items related to mental protection, he would not be able to counter Chief of Hobgoblins' fear. The Chief of Hobgoblins charges at Suho, who is already busy with the regular hobgoblins and is thinking about a way to counter the skill Fear. Suho remembers that he can counter the skill even without any other skill or items by simply inflicting pain upon his body. Suho uses his sword to inflict injury upon his hand, which allows him to break free from the state of fear and easily blocks the Chief of Hobgoblins' attack. Our boy then again shifts his attention towards the remaining regular hobgoblins and takes care of them one by one. After making sure that there is no other hobgoblin that would disturb their fight, Suho uses his healing light to heal the injury he inflicted upon himself and shifts his attention towards the Chief of Hobgoblins, as Suho is expecting to have a nice fight with him. Suho starts attacking the Chief of Hobgoblins, and even though Suho is not dealing significant damage because of the difference in level, the damage is still gradually accumulating. Suho utilizes those gaps in the wounds and deals fatal damage to the Chief of Hobgoblins with his sword, which causes the Chief of Hobgoblins to use its skill Fear again. But once one overcomes fear, it would not consume them again. Suho then continues to attack the Chief of Hobgoblin, exploiting his wounds, and delivers his final blow to the Chief of Hobgoblins, barely keeping it alive. The Chief of Hobgoblins is taking its final breaths when Suho uses his healing light on it, which completely heals its wound, confusing the Chief of Hobgoblin as to why a human would do that. But there is no way our boy would let the Chief of Hobgoblin die without using him completely. Our boy repeats this process over and over, beating the Chief of Hobgoblin till it begs for its life, and then healing the Chief of Hobgoblins to fight it again. This way, Suho was able to upgrade many of his sword skills to a rank, like Dragon Slash, Horizontal Slash, and the Stab skill, while also increasing his cutting power and penetration power by 30 and 50% respectively. But despite acquiring that, our boy has no intention of stopping here, as he again uses his healing on the Chief of Hobgoblins after almost beating the life out of him. The Chief of Hobgoblins is about to lose his sanity, as Suho exhibited an overwhelming presence capable of breaking even the ferocity of a boss monster, and doing this repeatedly earned our boy Intimidation, which is an A-rank skill. Suho was able to learn everything he needed to know thanks to the Chief of Hobgoblins, and now that the Chief of Hobgoblins' role has ended, Suho finishes him off completely with his sword. Suho became the MVP in conquering the Green-Red Gate. Suho gets additional experience and 1 bonus stat for being MVP. Moreover, our boy was able to reach level 10 after beating countless hobgoblins, but it does not stop here, as the system wants our boy to become even stronger, so it grants him great power. The system awards our boy with 5 additional bonus stats and rewards him with Curing Light, which is an E-rank skill that consumes magic to heal diseases, contrary to Suho's skill Healing Light, which is an E-rank skill that consumes magic to heal wounds. With this skill, our boy would not have to worry about getting debuffed by his opponents, and our boy believes that if he continues to develop his skills while leveling up, he would be able to cure 10,000 poisons someday. After getting everything he needed from this place, our boy decides to go see some familiar faces and walks out of the gate. Players who are standing outside the gate get surprised after noticing that the gate is shaking, because it means that the gate was conquered, but they get shocked when they see only one person walking out of the gate. Players are amazed to see that a single player was able to conquer a gate, which makes them want to hire Suho at any cost. So they try to introduce themselves to Suho, but our boy does not bother interacting with them and quickly jumps down to meet Young Cholman, the team leader of the South Korean Hunter Association, which surprises Young Cholman because he has no idea who Suho is at all. The scene then shifts to the office of the South Korean Hunter Association, where Suho is sitting with Young Cholman in his office, and the reason our boy came here is to get a hunter's license, which made Young Cholman wonder if Suho was talking about license renewal. But now that Cholman has looked at Suho's information, he realizes that Suho is an unregistered hunter. Cholman notices that Suho is a newly awakened player who is a healer, a class that is the weakest among the 4 class categories, but that healer was able to conquer the green-red gate all by himself. However, what surprises Cholman are the results, which show that Suho is more like a warrior than a healer. Suho notices the confused expression on Cholman's face and asks if something is wrong, to which Cholman shakes his head. Cholman asks Suho what he is studying at the moment, to which Suho responds that he is a college dropout. Cholman asks Suho if the reason he dropped out was because of him being unemployed and not being able to afford college fees. Suho says that he dropped out due to poor scores, leading Cholman to believe that Suho was a medical student. However, Suho informs Cholman that he was majoring in physical education, which surprises Cholman slightly. Cholman then asks Suho why he chose the healer class when most people choose to be warriors or archers, to which Suho responds that he hates getting hurt, which Cholman finds quite unusual. However, he does not press the issue and instead asks our boy to explain the entire process by which he was able to conquer the gate alone. Suho responds that he did not do anything special and defeated the hobgoblin he met upon entering the gate so that he can survive. Cholman does not believe Suho's word, so Suho takes out all the magic stones he gathered from the hobgoblins and their chief, shocking Cholman. Suho has no idea how much a magic crystal is worth, so he hands them over to Cholman, who, surprised by the number of magic stones, assures our boy that they will be processed as soon as possible. Cholman grabs one of the magic stones given to him by Suho and asks our boy if he really wants to be a hunter, to which our boy responds that he decided to become one the moment he awakened as a player. Cholman impulsively praises Suho for his decision and later realizes that he should not have. So he asks Suho about the reason behind his decision. Suho tells Cholman that he is not quite sure about the reason himself, as he believes people become hunters for various reasons, but for Suho, he just simply hates the very existence of the monsters and the gates, for he lost his entire family because of the gate shock. Suho informs Cholman that he is well aware of the dangers of stepping into the gate alone, but because of his intense hatred, he could not resist entering the gate and wondered if defeating the monsters would ease his fury. Suho mentions that he just blindly eliminated monsters he came across, but despite doing so, he was not able to get rid of the clots in his heart, which made our boy instinctively decide to become a hunter, so that he can work for everyone's safety and make sure there are no more victims like him, by helping people not lose something valuable to these monsters. Suho tells Cholman, who is amazed by Suho's determination and reason, that he wants to be a hunter of South Korean Hunter Association. Cholman is really glad to hear that. However, he once more asks Suho if he really wants to tread this path, for becoming a part of the South Korean Hunter Association means living as a civil servant hunter, which means that Suho will get paid significantly less than the hunters in the private guild. Suho is well aware of it. However, despite that, he wants to join the South Korean Hunter Association because what he wants more than pay is free access to various gates and priority on conquering them, and the South Korean Hunter Association has both of these things. Our boy also wants to impose strict punishment for player crimes by doing fieldwork, which he would like if it is in gate conquests. Cholman is surprised by this and wonders if something like this is even possible because, despite having priority conquest rights for various gates, the South Korean Hunter Association usually auctions it off to private guilds, because no one would want to sacrifice their life to attack the gates with a really small salary, and even though it is often said that the path of civil servant was chosen out of concern for others, truth is far from that, as most people only want to become a hunter. Civil servant because it is a stable job. Moreover, in this job, one is able to earn money without entering the gates. This is the very reason most of the civil servants aim for an administration job, while other civil servants are in frenzy trying to avoid entering the gates by any means. But Chulman is shocked after meeting on Suho, who wants to work in the fields and talks about the safety of the people, which makes him the ideal civil servant hunter. Chulman is so happy that he is feeling a bit dizzy, but he straightens up and praises our boy, telling him that it has been a long time since he met someone like him. Chulman informs Suho that he will finish filling the documents and other identification, after which Suho needs to complete the aptitude test, a written exam, and a practical exam, after which he would be able to take the hunter exam. Our boy likes how things are going so far, but he gets shocked when Chulman informs him that the registration for this year's exam has already closed and tomorrow is the exam day. However, Suho's face instantly glooms when Chulman assures him to register him additionally. Our boy asks if it would be all right, to which Chulman responds that this is one of the existing rules, so there is no problem in it, and since Suho conquered the gate alone, he can report that to the higher-ups to get approval. Even though our boy has been recommended by Chulman because of his excellent talent, Chulman believes that it would be hard for him to prepare for both written and practical exams in just one day, and although Suho would have no problem in a physical exam because of his outstanding performance in the fields, the written test would be a bit difficult for him. However, our boy still asks Chulman to register him, for he believes it is a good idea to take the exam once for experience if one has a chance, and since it is just a test, our boy can take it again in case he fails. Suho then asks Chulman if he would be taking the test all at once tomorrow, to which Chulman, who is amazed at Suho's bravery, responds that he can check his aptitude test result today. Suho thanks Chulman for the information and asks if Chulman can handle the magic crystal right now, for he does not have enough money for registration fees, to which Chulman responds that he will take care of it while checking Suho's aptitude test. Suho gazes at Chulman and is glad that Chulman is still the only person he can trust. After some time, Suho is done with all the aptitude tests while Chulman, on the other hand, has deposited all the money Suho earned from the magic stones, and he tells our boy to have a look at it. Our boy is surprised to find out that he has earned 3 million won from the magic stones, on which Chulman embarrassingly tells Suho that as a civil servant hunter, Chulman receives complete tax exemption benefits, especially for magic crystals. Our boy is amazed by this perk and asks team leader Young Chulman if he can prepare for the exam at the South Korean Hunter Association Library, which contains workbooks and reference books related to tomorrow's test, as he desperately wants to cram for it. Chulman is glad to see Suho's enthusiasm to do well on the test, and tells our boy that he is allowed to use the library. Chulman then takes Suho to the library, telling him that one does not need an employee card to leave, so Suho can study as much as he wants. Chulman then wishes Suho the best of luck on his test tomorrow and prepares to go to his home. Suho is glad to see that Chulman has not changed a bit, as he was always a kind and trustworthy brother, who, because of his trustworthiness, later became the president of the association in the future. It was hard for Suho to pretend that he knew nothing, but he had to do it, even though it felt like he was treating Chulman, because if he did not, then Chulman would have gotten suspicious. After gathering his thoughts, our boy then starts looking for the skill he came to the library for, because even though he knows the major things that will happen in the future, Suho does not remember every single detail of those events, and that skill will help our boy regarding that. Suho comes across a big book that looks different than the rest of the books, but our boy remembers when he tried to get information from this book in his past. This book itself informed him that it is from another world. Our boy also remembers the certain way through which one is able to use this book and puts the books upside down on his head after opening it. However, despite keeping it above his head like nothing happens, which confuses Suho, but as he is wondering, Suho sees a system message, informing him that the Library of Memories is inviting because it is interested in Suho's story. A bright pink light shines from the pages of the book, after which our boy instantly gets sent to a very huge library. The Library of Memories is a library that makes one remember everything they once saw or heard, no matter if it is a painful or distressing memory. The human mind is able to keep itself safe from these memories thanks to the mechanism of forgetting, but the moment one obtains the Library of Memories, they fall under the curse of memory. The original holder of this skill was the Hexagon's guild manager, who was also a former employee of the South Korean Hunter Association. The guild manager, while studying in the library and preparing for a job change, used this book as a pillow to sleep because she found sleeping face down to be uncomfortable. People believe she was lucky enough to acquire this skill, and because our boy got this information from her, he decides to buy her a meal when she sees her next time. The system asks Suho if he would like to donate his story to the Library of Memories. With the help of the overwhelming provided by this skill, Suho believes he would be able to restore all of his memories, which fade and get edited as the time passes. But with this skill, our boy would be able to capture everything accurately, along with the often overlooked details. So Suho decides to donate his story to the Library of Memories. The Library of Memories accepts Suho's story and begins to access and document Suho's memories, due to which Suho is covered by many runic letters and dozens of books. After a few moments, Suho obtains the Library of Memories, an A-rank skill that stores all memories the player has seen and heard in the library, allowing the user to access them at any time. Moreover, the Library of Memories also recommends necessary information to the user when required. Suho feels that the recording process was quite strange, which makes him wonder if it was because of the illusionary space. However, he decides not to worry about it and tests his skill to see his last moments once again. The Library of the Memories takes our boy to that exact moment when he was surrounded by his former teammates, and it is so accurate that our boy can also feel the emotions he felt at that time when he saw the faces of the selfish traitors who prevented the end of the gate because of their greed. Our boy regrets choosing this unpleasant memory and believes he should have chosen something else. However, as he recalls the moment he fell off the cliff, he notices the system messages from that time, which surprises him because he never expected the system to send him back. Suho remembers reaching the state of unity of the Divine Sword, and he acquired the first SS grade skill. However, Suho never expected that the system would give him another opportunity just because he was the first one to reach the state of the Transcendent. Our boy has never heard of something like this before and realizes that him coming back to the past was not a coincidence, rather a reward from the system. The scene then shifts to Suho, who has left the library in a taxi to meet someone. Suho gets out of the taxi, thinking that he should not worry about the reason he came to the past. Rather, Suho should think about what he should do now that he has returned to the past, because using his past memories, our boy not only can prevent what happened to him, but can also stop the initial suppression of the unpredictable gates, which later caused enormous casualties. Utilizing this opportunity, our boy believes he can conquer the gates much faster than he did in his past life. So Suho cannot afford to waste any of his precious time, which is why he is standing in front of Nexus, the largest private hunter academy in the whole country. The reason Suho is here is because he needs a lot of money for the future, and he believes he can make that money in this academy. As our boy enters the Nexus Academy, he is greeted by the receptionist, who asks Suho's purpose for coming here, to which our boy responds that he wants to meet Director Kim Sui. The receptionist, confused, asks Suho if he has scheduled a separate appointment, to which Suho shakes his head, telling the receptionist that he just came by because he has something to discuss with her. The receptionist tells Suho that it would not be possible for him to meet Kim Sui like this, because to talk to her, Suho must have scheduled the meeting in advance. Suho, realizing that the receptionist would not let him pass by, tells her to inform Kim Sui that Tae Solo Conqueror of the Syndrome Station Pre-Catastrophe Gate is here to meet her. Suho is immediately shown the way to the director's office, where he is greeted by Kim Sui, who is the director of Nexus Academy. Kim Sui requests a seat for our boy and inquires as to why the Soul Conqueror of the Syndrome Pre-Catastrophe Gate is here at the Nexus, to which Suho responds that he has come to request a scholarship as he plans to take the Hunter License exam, which will be held tomorrow. Kim Sui is confused and asks Suho how long it has been since he awakened, to which Suho responds that he was awakened today. Kim Sui is shocked to find out that an unregistered hunter who awakened today would be taking the Hunter License test tomorrow. But what further shocks Kim Sui is the fact that the same unregistered hunter is also the solo raider of the pre-catastrophe gate that occurred in Syndrome today. Our boy informs Kim Sui that he is able to take the test despite having only awakened today because he was fortunate enough to have a connection with someone from the Hunter Associate who assisted him in securing a spot for the test shortly after awakening. Suho then requests Kim Sui to grant him the status of a Nexus scholarship student if he passes the test as the top candidate, and Kim Sui should not only grant him the status of a Nexus scholarship, but also the scholarship itself. Our boy knows how hard it is for a complete rookie to come at the top, But since Suho, in a way, is an experienced newbie who has conquered countless gates, it would be easy for him. Kim Sui, however, acknowledges Suho's skill as a hunter, for he single-handedly conquered an unprecedented gate. But the hunter test is a different matter altogether, for it has an average passing rate of less than 20%. Seeing Kim Sui unconvinced, our boy suggests she disregard him and null the scholarship payment in case he does not come first. Kim Sui, seeing Suho going this far to join Nexus, asks him the reason for joining their organization, despite there being Hexagon and Prime, to which our boy responds that he chose Nexus because it is in the most regrettable situation. Kim Sui is surprised to hear this, but Suho explains that despite Nexus Academy being the most elite academy in the country, it has failed to produce a first or second place winner, resulting in a significant decrease in the number of students applying to Nexus. Kim Sui cannot help but accept that Suho is right, as Nexus is at a point where they need to start showing something. But since there is no outstanding student who has grown significantly, they have not been able to. Kim Sui wonders if she should really accept Suho's proposal, because if Suho really comes out on top, then people will learn that the lone conqueror of the Remonitory Gate who passed the Hunter test with the highest score is from the Nexus, which will not only boost Nexus's popularity but will also result in an increase in admission. Kim Sui recognizes that it is a proposal that leaves nothing to be desired, and that Suho is making such an offer because he wants something, so she asks Suho how much money he wants as a scholarship, to which Suho responds that he first wants to know the scholarship for the top student. Kim Sui informs Suho that the top student receives a full refund of tuition fees for that year, as well as an additional 30 million won as a congratulatory bonus for passing, and that if the examinee wishes, they may join the Nexus Guild immediately. Suho is amazed by such a handsome scholarship, but Kim Sui knows Suho wants more, so she asks him how much he wants his scholarship to be, to which our boy responds that $300 million would be nice, which is a reasonable amount given the additional benefits that come with passing as the top student and the size of the academy. Kim Sui is irritated that she cannot object to what our boy is saying because he is simply stating facts, so she accepts Suho's offer and promises to pay him 300 million won for passing the test as the top student, allowing our boy to look around the institute while she prepares the contract. The scene then shifts to Suho, who is looking around the Nexus Academy with one of the workers. He cannot help but be amazed at the sheer area of this academy, which even seems larger than an amusement park, and he believes that he would not lack anything once he enrolls in Nexus. Suho looks at the worker who is guiding him and feels bad for him because it appears that they woke the poor guy up while he was sleeping to show him around the academy. Suho apologizes to the worker for being a burden at this hour, to which the worker responds that it is the least he can do for an important guest. As he is walking, Suho notices that there is someone on the playground and asks the worker if he is a student, for Suho is not able to see clearly from afar. The worker responds that the boy in front of them is the most dedicated student of the academy, who trains at this hour regularly. The worker instructs the student, who goes by the name Daehan, to take care of his body, as it is as crucial as practicing. However, Daehan refuses to listen to him, telling the worker that he needs to work harder than the rest of the students, for he is a third-year student. Our boy remembers Daehan, as he was the top tanker in the whole country and Suho had formed a few raid parties in his previous life with this guy. Our boy remembers how great Daehan's mental strength and defense were, although it was quite unfortunate that the position of pure tankers weakened over time. Our boy notices that Daehan is holding an axe instead of a shield, which makes him conclude that Daehan has not found his true aptitude yet, which is perfect for our boy, for he can lay some groundwork in advance so that he can build a connection with Daehan, who will join Nexus, and bring Daehan into the Great Hunter Association in this life. The worker introduces both of them to each other, after which our boy asks Daehan if he is planning on using a battle axe as his main weapon, to which Daehan nods. Suho immediately asks Daehan why he chose the battle axe as his main weapon, to which Daehan goes silent for a moment before informing Suho that he wants to be a melee user and was advised to use the battle axe by Nexus Academy's consultors. The consultors told Daehan that such weapons need to be suited to one's physique from the start to handle them, and the worker also believes it is a good choice, since nothing can match the battle axe when it comes to the destructive power. Suho asks Daehan if he has only been using the battle axe since then, to which Daehan nods, explaining that he chose not to try out different weapons because he is a slow learner, and considering how it took him 2 years to become proficient with the battle axe, Daehan believes that trying out different weapons would take him too long. Daehan mentions that despite practicing with the battle axe for 2 whole years, he is not very good at handling it. Suho knows that it is because the battle axe does not fit Daehan's aptitude, but chooses not to say it out loud. Our boy is shocked and wonders if it is Daehan's perseverance or stubbornness, because he should have, at the very least, tried to switch weapons if his proficiency with the battle axe was not improving from the start. Daehan, confused to see Suho's expression, asks if there is any problem with that. Suho concludes that the largest academy in the country is surprisingly lax and responds that he is thinking of something different, instructing him to use a weapon that he is comfortable handling, because all players will receive stat adjustments later on, through which one can quickly increase their skill proficiency with the skill correction effect, while few other things depend on personal knowledge and experience. Suho tells Daehan that if they keep that in mind, then the battle axe does not suit him, because the fact that it took Daehan 2 whole years to become proficient at it indicates that Daehan and the battle axe do not synergize well. Daehan looks as if the sky fell on him, while Suho explains that despite the battle axe having high instantaneous destructive power, the gap that occurs after an attack is too long, and if there are no countermeasures to prepare for that interval, one would get counterattacked. However, Suho mentions that Daehan would do well as a tanker, as his size is too large to be protected by a tank. Daehan knows that Suho's explanation makes a lot of sense. However, he is hesitating to let go of the battle axe he has been using for a whole 2 years. Suho mentions that if Daehan can bother handling a weapon that does not suit him for 3 years, it only means that Kang Daehan's aptitude is actually closer to that of a tank. Our boy assures Daehan that if he wears a kite shield on his left arm, while holding a one-handed bludgeon in his right hand, then his practical scores will significantly improve as compared to now. Daehan is reluctant to change to tank because the test is tomorrow and he believes it would be difficult for him to change positions at the very last moment, while Suho, on the other hand, also has no intention of backing down. So he tells Daehan that while everyone believes the mage to be the core of the party, it is actually the tank who goes aggressive, while protecting the mage and healer, allowing the party to function properly. Because of that, Suho mentions that it would be better for Daehan to wield a shield, so that he can use crowd control in various ways. However, a tank should also wield at least one primary weapon besides a shield, which allows him to conduct crowd control effectively. After that long explanation, Daehan is finally convinced, without being discouraged, which our boy believes is a good thing, and is glad that Daehan is quick to make rational decisions. Daehan thanks Suho for the advice, while Suho ends this talk by wishing good luck to the new tanker. The worker, who was with our boy, tells him he was asked by the director to show their guest a tour of the academy, but after seeing Suho had a solid understanding of contracts and advice, the worker asks our boy if he is here as an instructor, to which he says he is more like a stakeholder, realizing he should not have said that much as it would be suspicious for someone without a license to have this much knowledge of things related to the hunters. To change the topic of the talk, Suho asks the worker whether his contract is ready, given that they have been here for quite some time, to which the worker responds that he just received a call about it, so they should now return to the director's office. The scene then shifts to the next day, where the examinees have gathered in the area in front of the South Korea Hunter Association with their swords to obtain their hunter's license. Every examinee has honed their skills for this day and is in peak condition, whereas the man of the hour on Suho, who conquered the gate alone, is in his worst condition due to exhaustion from wandering around too much last night. Before conducting the exam, South Korean Hunter Association does a drug test of each examinee one by one, which Suho believes is useless, as even though it is done because of possible doping, people who dope themselves usually do not consume drugs but rather skill buff. Suho notices that the test taker in front of him is at most level 5, but the magic wavelength that our boy is sensing from him would not come from someone at level 5, and Suho notices that it is not just that test taker, but rather, quite a few people have been buffed. Suho's sense of distinguishing magic gets much more sensitive as compared to others, because of which our boy is able to acquire magic detection, which is a B rank skill, and makes it easy for Suho to distinguish the magic wavelength. Suho notices that the examinees are in a mess as there are many cheaters in this test, even though the issue of doping abuse of buff skills has not surfaced yet, which is something that should get sorted out, and Suho plans to do it with Jung Chulman's help, who is one of the few clean guys in this examination hall. The scene then shifts to examinees, who have just finished taking their written test, which most of them believe was hard, to the point that they are sure they would not pass. However, For our boy, it was a piece of cake, all thanks to the library of memories, although Suho feels like he unintentionally became a cheater. As Suho is standing waiting for the physical tests, he is greeted by team leader Young Cholman, who wants to know how our boy did on his test, to which Suho confidently responds that he can pass it. Cholman, who came here to assist the examiners since the association is always short on staff, is impressed at Suho's confidence, even though this was the hardest written test ever. However, Suho mentions that he was somehow able to solve it. Suho wants to ask something from Cholman, which is something Cholman does not mind as long as it is not related to the test. Suho assures that it is not that relevant and asks Cholman if they did a buff check earlier, but Cholman does not understand what Suho means. Suho explains that while he was being tested earlier, he noticed many examinees using skill buffs and asks Cholman if the association intentionally avoids checking for cheating through skill usage, because while the association conducts urine and blood tests to prevent drug doping, confiscates personal belongings, and requires examinees to change into exam uniforms to prevent cheating, they appear to overlook this particular method. Our boy further adds that a simple magic detection will make it easier to spot cheaters. Cholman realizes that Suho is right about skill buffs, so he thanks our boy for pointing it out and assures him he will check it before the practical test. Suho is relieved knowing that Cholman will handle it and decides to go prepare for the practical test, but is stopped by Suho, who informs our boy that he personally wishes to work with him. Cholman tells Suho that he wishes for him to get a good score on the practical test and wishes him the best of luck. After having a talk with Cholman, Suho then reaches the practical test venue, where 30 minutes later, the test takers are informed that their test will be postponed by 2 hours due to the dive capsule issues, and they are instructed to have lunch in the cafeteria and wait in the lounge or training area for a while. The examinees are wondering if the dive capsule is broken, while Suho, on the other hand, cannot help but be amazed at how fast Cholman takes action, because Suho knows that the capsule issue is just an excuse and Cholman is actually using that excuse to take measures against the skill buff. Cholman recalls that with 1,200 candidates in this test, the passing rate was less than 10%, but if the association can identify the cheaters, it will drop to 7%, which is bad news. However, the good news is that those who pass this exam will be pure top-tier talents, which reminds our boy that he should keep an eye out for anyone useful among them. As Suho is looking for the promising candidates, he hears a heated argument between two players at one part of the practical test venue. Suho realizes that one of the examinees is Park Young, who asks the other examinee for a spar, but gets rejected, after which Park Young taunts the examinee, upon which the examinee gets infuriated at him, but instead of fighting, he tells Park Young to get lost. However, Park Young has no intention of backing down, so he attacks the examinee first, knowing that the examinee would definitely defend himself, which would eventually lead to a fight. Park Young swings his sword at the examinee. However, Suho jumps in at the right time and blocks Park Young's attack. The examinee is furious with Park Young and wonders if he has completely lost his mind, but eventually calms down after Suho assures him that he will take care of the problem. The examinee asks Suho if he is an officer, to which our boy replies that he is a fellow test taker like them, and tells the examinee to leave Park Young to him, as nothing good will come from getting involved with that guy. The examinee, still annoyed, eventually decides to not get further involved in this situation and leaves both of his fellow test takers alone. Park Young, irritated by our boy, asks him why he interfered, to which Suho introduces himself, asking Park Young if he wants Suho as his sparring partner, since Park Young was also looking for one. However, Park Young refuses to spar Suho because he appears weak, telling Suho not to get arrogant just because he was able to stop his attack by luck, and telling our boy to get lost. Suho provokes Park Young to accept his challenge by calling him weak, which enrages Park Young. However, our boy does not stop and hits the iron while it is hot, telling Park Young that they can determine whether Suho's earlier block was luck or not, which they would not be able to do if Park Young flees the challenge like a scaredy cat. Suho gets successful at provoking Park Young, for Park Young decides to accept Suho's challenge, telling our boy that he was bored of being surrounded by cowardly idiots. Suho, glad that Park Young accepted his challenge, suggests that they should first get the supervisor's approval, after which they can have a sparring match in the sparring arena, without any problems. The scene then shifts to the sparring arena, where our boy and Park Young have decided to have their sparring match, under the supervisor's care, in front of their fellow test-takers, who are annoyed to see how there are people who do not hold back from causing such a scene and fighting on a day like this. Most of the test-takers believe that both Suho and Park Young are just attention seekers who think that they are someone special after gaining abilities and becoming players. The supervisor lays out the rules for the fight, mentioning that only training weapons that are provided by the association would be allowed in this sparring match. The supervisor also states that because it is a sparring match, he is required to stop it if things become too heated. After making sure he has explained the rules, the supervisor gives them the signal to start the match. Park Young, making sure to catch our boy by surprise, charges at him with his sword as soon as the supervisor hand comes down. However, Suho was quick enough to block his attack with his sword. Park Young then quickly jumps high in the air and uses the momentum to hit Suho as he comes down, but Suho manages to dodge it by quickly sliding away. Park Young gets irritated to see Suho dodge his attack one after another, so he tries to attack him by swinging his sword upward. However, before Park Young is able to do so, Suho stops his attack with his foot. Suho tries to again taunt Park Young, telling him that he is a completely weak person, and he was not expecting the match to be this easy. Park Young, the mad swordsman, was notorious for his insatiable thirst for power. He would challenge experts whenever an opportunity arose, driven by his relentless desire to master advanced swordsmanship and achieve greater strength. This obsession eventually led him down a dark path, transforming him into a hunter-killer. However, our boy never anticipated encountering him during the hunter exam. Now that fate had brought them together, Suho decided to take preventive measures, determined to steer Park Young away from making the same mistakes. He knew firsthand how formidable Park Young's skills were from their battle in his previous life, and he was unwilling to let him tread that destructive path again. Without hesitation, Suho launched a swift kick, sending Park Young crashing to the ground. He coldly remarked that for someone who had boasted so much earlier, Park Young was quite unimpressive. Shocked by Suho's overwhelming strength, Park Young struggled to comprehend what had just happened. It was, after all, his first encounter with a level 10 opponent. Until now, the strongest adversary he had faced was far below Suho's level. Even if Park Young put forth his best effort, he knew deep down that victory was beyond his grasp. However, rather than conceding defeat, he made an unexpected decision: to give it his all. With renewed determination, Park Young charged at Suho, launching a fierce attack. Suho, however, effortlessly blocked his strike. Refusing to back down, Park Young continued his relentless assault, yet every attack was swiftly dodged. Suho noted that Park Young's strikes carried more weight than before, indicating his sheer desperation. Then, without warning, Park Young abruptly altered his posture. Suho immediately recognized the stance. It bore a striking resemblance to the dragon sword technique, a skill that Park Young was destined to master. Park Young lunged once more, but today, no matter how hard he tried, his efforts were in vain. Suho dodged with ease, causing Park Young's confidence to waver. Yet, something was amiss. Upon closer observation, Suho realized that Park Young's technique was not the true dragon sword technique, but rather a rudimentary sword style. It made sense. After all, a beginner without a hunter's license could never have mastered such an advanced technique. Frustrated and unwilling to accept defeat, Park Young went on a rampage. His attacks became reckless, driven by sheer determination rather than strategy. Eventually, he found an opening. Suho, for the first time, was momentarily unguarded. Seizing this golden opportunity, Park Young swung his sword with all his might. But before his strike could land, he was met with an unexpected counter, a powerful palm strike straight to his chin. The impact sent shockwaves through his body, and in an instant, he lost consciousness. Suho sighed, deciding to end the fight there. He knew that shattering Park Young's confidence further could lead to disastrous consequences. If nothing else, this encounter would ensure that Park Young remained fixated on him alone, too preoccupied to challenge any other hunters until he could prove himself. This, at the very least, would restore some peace to the testing center. Turning away, Suho called out repeatedly for the exam supervisor, who had been watching the duel in awe. When the supervisor finally responded, Suho instructed him to take care of Park Young until he regained consciousness, apologizing for having knocked him out by accident. The scene then shifted as Suho completed his buff doping test. He noticed an increased presence of skilled managers in the facility, likely disguised as technicians conducting inspections. One of the technicians approached him and instructed him to lie down. He then emphasized that Suho should press the emergency button immediately if he experienced any strange sensations during the dive process. Once Suho confirmed his understanding, the technician activated the Hunter Practical Test program. As the system connected with his consciousness, the dive process began. After reaching full synchronization, Suho found himself within the Healer Practical Test scenario. As he regained awareness, he surveyed his surroundings, quickly realizing why the pass rate for healers was so low. He stood amidst utter chaos. Critically injured individuals lay scattered around him, their anguished cries filling the air. Suho struggled to believe his eyes. He had expected a rigorous test, but this was excessive. It became painfully clear that the Great Hunter Association lacked any sense of moderation in its exams. He knew that this ordeal would be traumatic, pushing him to his very limits. However, with unwavering resolve, he took a deep breath and prepared to do his job. The simulation scenarios in the program, which our boy is currently facing, change every year, and the passing criteria vary accordingly each time. Typically, they range from one-on-one battles to one-versus-many encounters, with scores determined by how long an examinee lasts and how many kills they achieve. However, the healer exam is a unique case. Unlike offensive classes, where power, skill, and the number of kills matter, a healer's abilities are judged differently. While exceptional healing prowess is essential, the primary virtue assessed in healer exams is sacrifice. From the perspective of others, healers who risk their own lives to save others receive the highest scores, implying that in a healer's exam, one must be willing to die while protecting the patient. The real issue, however, lies in Suho's status window specs, which remain fully intact even in this simulation, making it significantly harder for him to be defeated. Unlike other examinees, our boy is not reckless enough to let himself be beaten to death. After all, expecting someone who has already died once to die again seems excessive. Picking up a sword lying on the ground, our boy starts moving toward the source of numerous screams, until he discovers a woman. Unlike the other victims, she is still alive. Through her fading strength, she warns Suho to run before the monsters return. Realizing the objective of this test, Suho quickly understands that his mission is to protect this woman until the end. First, he reassures her, calmly telling her not to worry, promising that he will keep her safe until the rescue teams arrive. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to one of the technicians overseeing an examinee in a simulation pod. The technician watches until the test concludes. A short while later, the examinee exits the pod, appearing dissatisfied with his performance. As the technician instructs him to collect his personal belongings and leave, the examinee, Kang Jin-young, walks out of the room, feeling that he could have done more. His recorded time is 9 minutes and 4 seconds in the Archer exam, an underwhelming result. The technician, perplexed by the low completion time, speculates whether the increased difficulty of the test might be responsible. Curious about another examinee who has been inside the simulation for quite some time, the technician turns to her director, Shin, and asks about his progress. Director Shin nonchalantly informs her that the examinee has just crossed the 30-minute mark, leaving the technician in shock. She rushes over to verify the information, finding that the examinee in question is none other than our boy. The technician, impressed by his endurance, assumes that Suho must be a warrior. However, when she asks Director Shin to confirm his class, Shin shakes his head, stating that Suho is actually a healer. Doubting his words, the technician argues that Suho is wielding a sword, making it unlikely that he belongs to a healer class. But upon closer inspection, she realizes that Director Shin was telling the truth. Suho is indeed using healing skills inside the simulation. Astonished, the technician struggles to process the idea of a healer with such exceptional combat abilities. However, a concern arises. If Suho is not beaten to death, he might face disqualification. Director Shin, unperturbed, calmly explains that there is no reason to disqualify him. The fundamental goal of a healer is to protect the patient until the very end, and Suho meets every requirement. Shin elaborates, pointing out that instead of abandoning the patient to fight, Suho is staying close, escorting her safely while simultaneously healing her when necessary. He adds that Suho is, in fact, risking his life to fulfill his duty. Since all the necessary conditions are met, there is absolutely no basis for disqualification. Furthermore, the practical program has not intervened, meaning that they are unable to disqualify him even if they wanted to. Director Shin confidently states that Suho is likely the top candidate in this practical exam, given his exceptional performance as a healer and his impressive time in the simulation pod. Back in the simulation, our boy swiftly draws his sword and eliminates a group of monsters in a single motion. Despite his overwhelming success, he remains dissatisfied with the results. Determined to improve, he leaps into the air and repeats the move multiple times. After countless repetitions, Suho suddenly acquires the B-rank skill, foot play. This discovery surprises him. He hadn't expected that it was possible to acquire new skills within the virtual reality test. Suho comes to a realization. As long as one remains on Earth, they will never escape the surveillance of the system. From the system's perspective, any direct physical movement allows a player to master physical skills. While the experience gain rate in a virtual reality setting is lower than that of real-world physical exertion, the simulation still serves as an excellent tool for skill training. Although Suho does not gain experience points or tangible items within the test, he is still able to acquire and refine various skills. In addition to swordsmanship, he manages to upgrade every sword-related skill he previously obtained to a rank. Suho begins to formulate a plan. If he acquires all the fundamental skills related to swordsmanship and raises them to a rank or higher, he might be able to develop a technique akin to Park Young's dragon sword technique. Seeing this as a rare opportunity, our boy dedicates himself to mastering all sword-related skills, pushing them to the highest possible level. As a result, his understanding of swordsmanship soon surpasses that of other players. Recognizing Suho's remarkable progress, the system, impressed by Suho's distinct swordsmanship, decides to fully recognize his accomplishments and offers our boy the opportunity to register a new swordsmanship skill that combines basic swordsmanship techniques and foot play. The system states that upon registration, Suho will be assigned a new skill rank, as well as the ability to name his skill whatever he wants. Our boy smirks, knowing that he has turned this healer examination into a personal training ground. As the test continues, he prepares to create a swordsmanship technique that will leave a lasting mark in history. Our boy decides to name his new swordsmanship skill Guardian Sword, an S-rank skill. After creating this new skill with the help of the system, the effects of Suho's existing swordsmanship and footplay skills increase by 50%. Recognizing Suho's great achievement, the system grants him 10 bonus points and, hoping that Suho will continue his journey on the path of the sword, also bestows upon him Sword Mastery, an S-rank skill. This skill not only removes acquisition restrictions on all swordsmanship abilities, but also lifts usage restrictions on all swords. Additionally, it enhances the effectiveness of all swordsmanship skills by another 50%. This privilege of exploration is reserved only for those with a profound understanding of swordsmanship. Our boy is pleased to achieve Guardian Sword, a skill that took him 10 years to obtain in his past life. However, armed with prior knowledge, he was able to acquire it much faster this time, significantly increasing his value. After successfully obtaining the skill, Suho shifts his attention to the monsters, which grow fiercer as time passes. He recalls that the number of monsters added to the test by the association is fixed. Yet, despite having slain hundreds, he is surprised to see that many still remain. Now that he has gained everything he sought from the simulation, our boy wants to leave. To do so, he must either die at the hands of the monsters he has been fighting for an hour or defeat them all. The choice is clear. With a determined expression, he unsheathes his sword, ready to erase every last one of them from existence. The scene shifts to the technicians outside the simulation pod, who are shocked to see our boy completely vanquish all the monsters, an unprecedented feat in the history of the practical test, while simultaneously healing the patient. The technicians all agree that there is no need to check the rankings, as the top candidate is standing right before them. A few days after the test, Every high-ranking official at Hexagon Guild's headquarters eagerly awaits the results of the Hunter exam. They firmly believe that one of their members, Kihyun, will secure the top spot, given the immense effort they have invested in his training. Confident that this time they will outshine the Prime Guild, the executives are left in utter disbelief when the results are announced. Their expectations shatter upon seeing our boy's name at the top, while Kihyun is nowhere near the leading candidates. The executives are stunned. How could an unknown candidate surpass their prized hunter, who did not even make it into the top 10? The scene then shifts to Suho, who is in a taxi when he receives a call from team leader Chulman of the South Korean Hunter Association. Answering immediately, Suho listens as Chulman congratulates him, not just for passing the exam but for securing the top score. It is not the first time our boy has surprised him. Chulman also apologizes for not reaching out sooner, explaining that he was quite busy. Suho reassures him that it is no issue and expresses his gratitude for all of Chulman's efforts. Chulman, modest as ever, insists that he deserves no credit. Instead, he thanks Suho for helping the association catch a large number of cheaters during this year's exam. Many candidates were caught engaging in skill doping, and thanks to Suho's information, the matter will now be reported to the higher-ups, leading to stricter testing regulations in the future. After a brief pause, Chulman hesitantly asks whether Suho still intends to join the South Korean Hunter Association, admitting that it may be too soon to ask so soon after the exam. Our boy assures him that while he may remain with the guild for the time being, he is fully committed to joining the association eventually. Hearing this, Chulman, with a slightly hoarse voice, promises to contact Suho as soon as the test schedule or recruitment process is announced. Noticing that Chulman is acting strangely, Suho decides not to press further and instead reminds him to take a break and eat well, even amidst his busy schedule. After ending the call, our boy receives another phone call, this time from Kim Sui, the director of Nexus Academy. She congratulates him on his success and informs him that the agreed payment has already been processed per their contract. Impressed by the efficiency of a large guild, Suho thanks Kim Sui for fulfilling the contract. She then extends an invitation for him to join the Nexus Guild, assuring our boy that he will receive superior treatment compared to any other guild. Curious, Suho asks how Nexus Academy can offer better treatment than its competitors. Kim Sui confidently replies that she will ensure his expectations are met, emphasizing that adjusting the terms will not be an issue. Given that Suho is both an Academy scholarship student and the top scorer on the South Korean Hunter Association exam, his value is indisputable. Kim Sui expresses her desire to discuss the terms in person, but Suho declines, citing prior commitments. He assures her that he will follow up once he has reviewed his schedule. To reassure Kim Sui of his interest, he mentions that joining the Nexus Guild would be more beneficial for him than affiliating with other institutions. Hearing this, Kim Sui becomes visibly excited and urges Suho not to sign any contracts with other parties in the meantime. She promises to do everything in her power to accommodate his schedule and immediately instructs her employees to begin preparations. Our boy, careful not to dampen her enthusiasm, looks forward to their upcoming discussion. As Suho hangs up, the taxi driver informs him that they have arrived at his destination. Stepping out of the vehicle, Suho takes a deep breath, ready to embark on the next phase of his plan. Not only has he passed the hunter exam, but he has also secured his license and received his well-earned deposit. Suho's next task is farming, and he has already purchased everything he requires, except for some quality weapons. Our boy specifically came to this secluded location, worried that the items he wanted might be out of stock in a busier store. However, he is still uncertain whether he will find anything suitable here. As Suho enters the shop, the store owner greets him and asks how he can help. Suho informs him that he has just become a hunter and is looking for a lightweight weapon. The store owner directs our boy to a box in the corner filled with inexpensive weapons. Suho, shocked by the thick layer of dust covering them, thanks the store owner and begins searching through the box. Our boy quickly realizes that most of the weapons in the box lack verified information. However, just because a weapon is unverified does not mean it is worthless. Some weapons require a process of liberation to reveal their true potential. Suho recalls that such weapons often emit an aura, signaling their need for recognition. Unlike Suho, most players would not recognize such a weapon in a place like this. After scanning the weapons, Suho picks up a spear he finds appealing. Activating his magic detection, he discovers that the spear is indeed asking for recognition. Without hesitation, he purchases it from the store owner. Suho is relieved to have found the weapon he was searching for, confident that if the store owner ever realizes its true value, he will regret selling it so cheaply. Determined to awaken the spear, Suho begins supplying it with magical energy, initiating its consciousness and triggering its awakening. However, the spear starts absorbing his magic power at an alarming rate, causing trouble for our boy. Before the situation worsens, he instinctively lets go of the weapon, causing it to fall to the ground. Suho sighs in relief. If he had held on to it for a moment longer, he might have fainted from complete magic depletion. Our boy deduces that his magic stat must be at least 100 to successfully awaken the spear. Determined to level up quickly, he resolves to strengthen himself. Although he cannot use the spear at the moment, Suho is confident that it will be invaluable to him in the future. The scene shifts to PBS, where Jo Jinhui, a reporter at the Institute, receives a call from our boy. At first, Jinhui does not recognize the name on Suho, but soon realizes that the top candidate from this year's Hunter exam is personally calling him. To ensure Jinhui does not forget him, Suho reminds him that he was the sole raider of the unprecedented gate incident at Syndrome Station. This revelation shocks Jinhui, causing him to rise abruptly from his chair, drawing the attention of his colleagues. Jinhui is astounded that Suho managed to clear the unprecedented gate before even obtaining his hunter's license. Curious, he asks why Suho specifically contacted him. Our boy responds that while searching, he came across Jinhui's blog and discovered that despite being a privileged golden spoon kid, Jinhui chose to work as a journalist, proving his strong sense of professionalism. Suho expresses his desire for Jinhui to be his exclusive reporter, promising him countless newsworthy stories, as Suho plans to accomplish incredible feats in the future. However, as a wealthy individual himself, Jinhui dislikes the idea of becoming Suho's subordinate. He finds Suho odd, someone who seems to believe he is special. Jinhui bluntly tells Suho that he finds his approach unpleasant. While Jinhui enjoys writing about major scoops, he has no intention of serving anyone. Our boy clarifies that he does not want a subordinate, but rather a great partner. Still, Jinhui remains skeptical, suspecting that Suho is merely trying to raise his worth before joining a guild. Suho counters this by explaining that he is not trying to increase his value, but rather gain fame. His goal is to become a civil servant. This revelation surprises Jinhui. He asks if Suho is referring to the South Korean Hunter Association, as he had assumed Suho was seeking fame to join a major guild. Skeptical, Jinhui wonders if Suho is joking, but Suho assures him that he is serious about joining the Hunter Association and working in the field. This raises another question in Jinhui's mind: whether Suho is one of those wealthy individuals for whom work is merely a prestigious hobby. Our boy responds that his motivation for pursuing public service stems from being a gate orphan. For him, conquering gates is his life's ultimate goal. Jinhui, unable to counter this response, is taken aback by the entire conversation. With so many strange people calling him for various reasons, it is difficult to keep track of them all. However, he wonders if Suho is truly the real deal. In the end, Jinhui declines Suho's offer to be his exclusive reporter, stating that he prefers to write articles of his own choosing. Unable to persuade Jinhui, our boy proposes a bet. He tells Jinhui that to earn his trust and prove his worth, he will demonstrate his abilities as a hunter. Our boy then makes a bold declaration. He intends to conquer the Tower of Challenge alone, an achievement considered impossible even for a well-formed party. If he succeeds, he asks Jinhui to become his exclusive reporter, confident that such a feat will be enough to earn his trust. Jo Jinhui is a PBS reporter and a top-player broadcaster who is prideful and comes from a wealthy family. In the world of players, Jinhui is famous as a reporter who never accepts requests. In Suho's previous life, Jinhui collaborated with him multiple times due to his excellent reporting skills and extraordinary ability to manipulate public opinion. However, because of his overwhelming talent, Jinhui was eventually cast out and disappeared. In any group, a sharp thorn is often seen as a threat, and in the world of reporting and journalism, Jinhui was that thorn. As time went on, He was unintentionally drawn into factional conflicts and was pushed toward early retirement. But our boy has no intention of letting history repeat itself, which is why he offered Jinhui the role of his personal reporter. After all, having a close reporter could only be beneficial. Jinhui, annoyed by Suho's audacity, accepts Suho's challenge, agreeing to become his exclusive reporter if he manages to conquer the Tower of Challenge alone. Suho wastes no time and hangs up the call, while Jinhui, on the other hand, is left irritated by how Suho is driving him crazy. Jinhui does not fully understand the vibes he gets from our boy, but he does believe they are not negative. Suho does not seem like a liar, nor does he appear to be scamming him. After pondering for a while, Jinhui decides not to dwell on it, as it is a gamble with no downside. The scene shifts to the Tower of Challenge, where our boy presents his license to a guard, asking if he is allowed to enter. The guard nods but is visibly startled upon realizing that Suho is alone. Our boy asks if it is impossible to attempt the Tower of Challenge solo, to which the guard shakes his head, explaining that while it is not impossible, it is highly recommended to have a party. Given that Suho only recently received his license, the guard suggests forming a team first, as casualties frequently occur even in this low-level area. Our boy laughs, stating that he prefers being alone, which leaves the poor guard confused. He is unsure how to handle this situation, as allowing Suho to enter alone feels like inviting an accident to happen. Nevertheless, he decides to let Suho go, informing him that he will have to pay a fee of 70,000 won upon entering and receiving the invoice. Our boy thanks the guard for his assistance, while the guard remains concerned, requesting that Suho proceed cautiously and return immediately if conquering the Tower of Challenge proves impossible. Suho then advances toward the entrance of the Tower of Challenge, commonly known as the hunting ground. It is one of the gates managed by the country, allowing players below level 20 to challenge themselves freely for self-development. Now that Suho's level has been reset, there is no better training ground for him than the Tower of Challenge. Our boy pushes open the massive door, entering the tower. The system informs him that players are allowed to forfeit at any time, and upon declaring withdrawal, they will be forcibly transported back to the entrance. Suho draws his weapon and immediately notices a slimy substance on the floor, which quickly transforms into a large slime monster, signaling the start of the first challenge. Wasting no time, the slime monster charges at Suho with surprising speed and size, catching him off guard. Although its damage is practically non-existent due to its level 1 status, it can still pose a problem if left unchecked. Seeing how the slime monster is dragging him, our boy decides to deal with it before it causes him to collide with the wall behind him. He swiftly uses his sword to pierce the slime monster's solid core, which is the key to defeating it. However, the core splits apart, regenerating and multiplying into several smaller slimes. While there are limits to their regeneration, and the divided slimes are weaker, handling multiple enemies alone is still challenging. This is why party play is recommended in the Tower of Challenge, as monsters frequently appear in groups on almost every floor. Surrounded by numerous smaller slimes, our boy charges at them, displaying acrobatic skills as he destroys their cores one after another. Suho thrusts his sword into one of the slime monsters, then uses it as a projectile, throwing it at another slime monster, causing its core to shatter into pieces. Leaping into the air, he catches his sword mid-flight. To ensure a safe landing, he instinctively grabs onto one of the slime monsters, preventing himself from crashing straight into the ground. Using his momentum, he jumps again and instantly slices through the cores of 3 slime monsters, conquering the first floor with a flashy move. Having completed the first floor, Suho wastes no time moving to the second, as he still has 48 floors to conquer and no time to rest. In Suho's past life, the highest official record for the Tower of Challenge was 48 floors, while the current record stands at 29 floors, both set through party play. The Tower of Challenge is typically attempted with a party, where the floors and monster levels are proportionate to the number of players. As the number of people increases, the experience gain decreases, but despite this, it is generally better to stick together in the long run. The standard approach to conquering the highest records in the Tower of Challenge is to form a party with at least level 20 hunters. However, our boy has no need for such a strategy, as he has already conquered up to 18 floors by defeating shamans, zombies, and various other monsters. Now, our boy is preparing to challenge the 19th floor, which differs from the previous ones. Unlike earlier levels that feature multiple enemies, this floor contains only a single monster, meaning that while there is only one opponent, it will be far stronger than any he has faced so far. On the bright side, Suho only needs to defeat one enemy to proceed. Wasting no time, Suho sprints toward the monster's spawn point before it even appears. He knows that the key to victory lies in defeating the monster as soon as it materializes. As the monster of the 19th floor, the red giant, its presence is short-lived. Our boy immediately sends it straight to Hellfire, eliminating it in mere moments. After this swift victory, the system asks Suho if he would like to challenge the 20th floor. However, rather than proceeding immediately, Suho decides to wait. This hesitation stems from a unique aspect of the 19th floor. Unlike other defeated monsters, whose bodies vanish instantly, the tower does this to hint that something valuable can be obtained from it. Suho steps onto the fallen red giant and grabs a large tooth hanging from its necklace. He remembers that this tooth serves a specific purpose, as it is not an item that can be used alone. Activating his magic detection skill, Suho sees a beam of light appear on one of the walls. Without hesitation, he inserts the tooth into the illuminated section of the wall, triggering the opening of a hidden subspace leading to the red giant's secret den. Suho suddenly finds himself standing before the subspace fortress of the Fortress King, Jang Pyong-ho. This subspace fortress, obtainable only by defeating the red giant in the Tower of Challenge, is unique. Unlike other subspaces that require specific items for entry, this fortress allows living beings to enter and exit at will. Without hesitation, our boy steps into the subspace and finds himself inside a cave. Moments later, a bright light appears, followed by a system message asking whether he wishes to become the new owner of the fortress now that its original owner is dead. Without hesitation, Suho accepts ownership of the subspace fortress. This grants him full control over it, along with mastery of the subspace fortress skill, an S-rank ability. As our boy ponders the possibilities of his new domain, another system message arrives, informing him that the subspace fortress can change depending on the magic power of its owner. At that very moment, Suho is momentarily blinded by a dazzling light. When his vision clears, he sees that the entire subspace has been reconstructed into a luxurious living room. The transformation surprises him. He did not expect the subspace to turn into a comfortable living area. This new development makes it easier for our boy to rest, as if he were in his own home. Based on the system's instructions and the expanded dimensions, Suho realizes that the space will continue to grow larger as his magic power increases, molding itself to suit his personal tastes. Relieved by his success, Suho reflects on the significance of what he has just achieved. He has managed to prevent Jang Pyong-ho from acquiring this skill, a feat that will prevent countless future problems. In his past life, Suho suffered immensely because of that smuggler. Pyong-ho had stored all manner of illicit goods in the subspace fortress. Just thinking about Pyong-ho's crimes is enough to make one sick. Our boy still remembers the sleepless nights he spent dealing with the havoc caused by that smuggler. But this time, things will be different. By securing the subspace fortress before Pyong-ho could claim it, Suho has not only eliminated the Fortress King's rise, but has also gained a personal stronghold of his own. This victory is a two-for-one deal, one that ensures a better future for both Suho and those who would have suffered under Jang Pyong-ho's influence. The scene then shifts to Jinhui, who discovers that Hunter on Suho, the one who wanted him to be his exclusive reporter, is reported to be a graduate of Nexus Academy. Jinhui believes this news will drive many students to apply for admission at Nexus. However, he suddenly recalls that Suho mentioned joining the Great Hunter Association, which contradicts the report. There is no way Nexus would publish such exclusive articles unless they were confident that Suho would join their guild. Jinhui decides not to dwell on it and lets events unfold naturally. As he continues reading about Suho, Jinhui begins to wonder how many floors Suho has conquered so far. Just then, he stumbles upon a live feed announcing that Suho has broken the highest record for the Tower of Challenge by clearing 30 floors. Everyone, including Jinhui, is taken aback by the news, initially assuming it was the work of an elite party from a large guild. However, their shock deepens when another report comes in. Suho has just conquered the 31st floor. The mystery surrounding the party behind this feat intensifies. Jinhui cannot believe his eyes. It has barely been any time since his last phone call with Suho, and yet, if it really is Suho achieving this, then Jinhui realizes he will be stuck covering Suho's exploits for life. The scene then shifts to Nexus Academy, where Sui is informed by her subordinates about Suho's record-breaking progress in real time. Shocked and concerned about his rapid success, Sui realizes that if they hope to recruit Suho into Nexus, they will need to offer him an enormous sum. To address this, she decides to contact the president and office manager of the Nexus Guild for an urgent meeting at headquarters. Meanwhile, Chulman, who is seated outside the Tower of Challenge, is also amazed at Suho's progress. He struggles to believe the speed at which Suho is climbing the tower. Chulman starts to think that if Suho actually joins the Hunter Association, they will witness an unprecedented challenge. As Chulman sits in disbelief, he receives a sudden phone call from the vice president of the association. Startled, he picks up the call. The vice president immediately asks for his location, to which Chulman replies that he is in Pangeo, near the Tower of Challenge. Pleased to hear this, the vice president then asks if he knows on Suho. Chulman responds that while they are not personally acquainted, they do know each other to some extent. Upon hearing this, the vice president orders him to bring Suho to the association. Chulman is overjoyed at the request and eagerly asks if they intend to recruit Suho as a scout for the association. However, his excitement is short-lived when the vice president clarifies that they only want Suho to take a picture with the association president before abruptly hanging up the call. Frustrated and disappointed, Chulman grows even more resentful of the executives in the association. He firmly believes that all high-ranking officials should be selected from experienced hunters, as the association is plagued by corruption. Because of such individuals in power, the general public views the South Korean Hunter Association as nothing more than a group of tax-evading bureaucrats. Feeling powerless, Chulman contemplates what excuse he should use to bring Suho to meet the association president. The scene then shifts to our boy, who has successfully conquered 48 floors of the Tower of Challenge. Exhausted, he wishes for the challenge to end. After completing the 48th floor, Suho takes a moment to check his stats and review the system rewards he has received. Merely looking at his updated stats is enough to reinvigorate him, as he has reached level 39 thanks to the tower, a remarkable feat on its own. Additionally, receiving 5 bonus stats each time he breaks a record is overwhelming. With his vast knowledge of the tower and the hunter world, Suho feels as if he is leveling up a secondary character in a game. Our boy allocates all his newly acquired stat points into magic. Once his stats are distributed, he readies himself for the final floor. The 49th floor challenge begins, and Suho finally faces the level 49 Tower Dragon, the master of the Tower of Challenge. He is slightly startled by the extreme imbalance in this matchup and wonders if the tower was truly designed to be conquered. Although the Tower Dragon does not possess pure-blood dragon traits, simply being a dragonborn grants it incredible strength, making it an exceptionally formidable opponent. However, none of that matters. Our boy came here to knock him out. Suho charges at the Tower Dragon, which upon seeing our boy rushing toward it,